closer or more dramatic than that anywhere. Kurt Angle is crying, Jeff. Everything has been spent here. The moment of truth. He said in an interview after the 95 World Championships when he won, they asked him what he was going to do, and he said, I'm going to go to 96, go for the gold in Atlanta for my father. And he did it.
Hello and welcome. That was the call from Kurt Angle. Kurt Angle winning his gold medal in Atlanta at the Olympics with a broken freaking neck. And it's fitting that I put that as the intro to this week's episode of That Guy's Wrestling Podcast. But we're going to get to why that is so fitting in just a moment. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for tuning in and listening. I had so much great feedback on the last episode. Thanks again to my main man, Justin, for jumping in and having a great conversation about The Undertaker, his streak, his legacy. So that was really good. Lots of fun. This week's episode is going to be a little bit different. A lot of news to react and report about and discuss. So that's where we're going to go. And it makes it really ironic because, as you know, following along each week, I typically like to start off with something I've enjoyed, something positive about the world of professional wrestling. And this week's topic and this week's positive are somewhat related. As we have been watching the episodes taped from the Performance Center, we've really gotten a lot more in-ring action. They haven't had a lot of time for like random segments. They've been doing a lot of interviews, but they've also had a lot of in-ring action, and they've kept the matches short, which I think has allowed them to put what seems like more matches in, and it's also allowed them to present us with lots of like new faces, lots of NXT call-ups, some that are meant to stay and some that are just there for, kind of doing the job kind of thing. But it's provided lots of opportunities, and those opportunities are needed with WWE being deemed an essential business. We're going to get to that in just a minute. And so I've really enjoyed getting to see all these extra people, like, they're working, they're living their dream. It's a tough time for people in general, and some of these people have been able to work this way, this opportunity from being an NXT, house show kind of wrestler to getting to work matches on Monday Night Raw, and that's absolutely amazing. And I'm happy, so happy for those people. We learned recently, though, that some of those opportunities were probably likely due to the amount of cuts that the WWE just had to make recently. And so that's what we're going to talk about a bit today. Now, for those of you that have been following and watching wrestling for a long time, if you remember, this time of year, right after WrestleMania, this was always the season. Always the time where they started releasing wrestlers. That's just the way it was, and it happened every year for a long time. They'd ramp up and you'd have all these guys wrestling, and you'd work to make WrestleMania the best show possible. It was the big payday for the wrestlers. That was their big pay-per-view seller, their biggest one. And then, shortly after, they would release, wrestlers that just, whether it was they just weren't working, they weren't needed, they were being paid more than what they were worth, whatever the reason might be, it just kind of happened every year. But then for quite a few years now, it seems like that had stopped. And a lot of that had to do with the large amounts of money the WWE was making from so many of their network deals, their TV deals, the WWE Network, Saudi Arabia shows, all kinds of things. Like, it's a good thing for being able to employ so many wrestlers, but other people have said that their company is so focused on just making money that it has let the in-ring and storytelling, kind of suffer a bit. But either way, they've avoided having to make these cuts. Now, another thing that's helped that is having the NXT brand, having the roster split. So you kind of have like 3 full rosters worth of wrestlers. So you've been able to employ more people. There is that aspect of them being so stubborn in the fact that they don't want to release anybody and let anybody go to AEW or Impact or any other company out there. So they just preferred for a while, and it seems somewhat selfish, to just hold on to these wrestlers, even if they weren't using them. They'd rather them sit at home, make their downside guarantee and then not be able to go help the competition. Now, that's a tough thing to, like if you're a fan of those other companies, you think to yourself, man, that's awful. That's mean. That's terrible. And you know what? You're probably right. On the other hand, if you were in charge of a company, how willing would you be to just allow other talented workers to go freely and go help your competition? And so I can see both sides of it. The human nature, the human aspect of it says let them go. If you're not using them and they want to go, let them go. And they recently finally just did that with the Revival. We had that long public spat of them trying to leave, them still being presented with opportunities. They were winning. Then they were made to be joked for a little while. But throughout the whole time, they just said they wanted to go, and now they were finally let go. So, speaking of let go, this week we had quite a few. We had a very, very long list of names. Now, there was a very vocal amount of people who were like, oh, this is awful, this terrible company. I can't believe they wasted all these talent, let all these people go. And yeah, that's true to an extent. But as we're going to get into the list in just a second. And if you think about it, as I read through this list, a majority of this list wasn't being used anyway. So as we watched WrestleMania over the last few weeks, a few weeks ago, you remember that it wasn't that long ago that Drew McIntyre was put in this same boat. He didn't make it. He became comedic, a joke of a wrestler. He was in a 3-man band. And then he was let go. He was released. So was Jinder Mahal. Both of them have come back. They did their work. They put the time in. They both came back. They both became world champions. So I'm curious to see if anybody on this list will, can do that, can revive their career. So that being said, let's dive into that list. Let's talk about some of these wrestlers, talk about some of the missed opportunities they might have had with it. Again, I feel bad for these people, but what I've learned, being a fan of wrestling for so long, is once you've made it, especially into the WWE, you most likely will always be able to find work somewhere. Now, right now, it's a little different. We're in a situation where there's no shows running anywhere else, no independent shows. A lot of the companies aren't able to do much. That won't last forever. So a lot of these guys will be able to find work. They'll always be able to cash in on their name. They'll always be known as former WWE star. They'll always be able to go to WrestleCon, things of that nature. They'll be able to sign autographs, take pictures. I'd still love to meet some of these people that I haven't met yet. But the rest of them, many of them will find work, whether it's AEW, New Japan, Impact, whatever the case may be. So let's start with a couple of guys who came from Impact. EC3 and Drake Maverick. They are friends. They've worked with each other in wrestling. They both have a lot of charisma, a lot of personality, and we'll start with Drake Maverick first. He did a terrific job, I think, in his role. I think he's just a very funny wrestler. He wasn't given enough time to show his in-ring ability, but he has a lot of personality. His work with the 24/7 title was really good. It's unfortunate that title seemed to be this is a title that a lot of these wrestlers we're about to discuss were chasing after. It seemed like anybody other than R-Truth, it was a negative on their career, but it is what it is. EC3 is one that I just don't understand, and we won't ever understand. There was something between him and you have to say Vince, that it just didn't work for them, and I don't understand why. He came to NXT, he did a fine job, he was over with the fans. He's not a great in-ring wrestler, like that's not his thing, but he's very good on the mic. He's got a very good character. He does his job and fits his role well. And then he was one of those publicly announced call-ups, and he had a little video, and it was meant to be a thing, and he was never, ever given a chance on the main roster. So I just didn't understand why they planned on bringing him up if they really had no intention. And again, that's just something. There's just so many things that are going to be left unsaid. So many things that we won't be able to know, things that we will never find out. Maybe there was something specific that happened. Maybe he knows why, and he wants to keep his mouth shut in hopes of maybe someday returning. If there was one or two people on this list that has a real shot of leaving, doing their thing, rebuilding themselves and coming back, he is it. I don't know if he would want to after the way he was treated on the main roster this time, but you never know. Money talks, and he has a chance of making it. A couple of guys I feel bad for, truly feel bad for, are Curt Hawkins and Zack Ryder. Zack Ryder managed a few times to get himself over on his own, and for some reason, and one that I'll never understand, the company just doesn't like that. They don't like when guys do it on their own, and I don't get it. I don't understand it. I don't know what why that was such a negative. Curt Hawkins, he is a career, his career, especially in his second term around in the WWE, was built on losing, and that's fine. He's a fine wrestler. He is kind of a professional jobber, but hey, that's, it pays the bills. He's good. He's talented. Those two worked well together. It's unfortunate for Zack Ryder. The two of them are both real wrestling fans. They're wrestling fans who happen to be able to make it as professional wrestlers, live their dream. I'm rooting for them. I'm rooting for them going forward. They missed some opportunities with Zack Ryder over the years. He had a really nice career. I mean, he had lots of wonderful moments. He had WrestleMania moments, winning the Intercontinental title at WrestleMania. I mean, that's just that's a dream for most professional wrestlers. So, his life is good. His life, he will move on. He'll find work, and who knows? Maybe he'll be back in the company someday. The biggest surprise to me on this list, and I'm really, really curious to see what happens with them, is Luke Gallows and Karl Anderson. I think they are very solid workers. People talk about them, the WWE dropping the ball with them as far as, the success they had in Japan. And, I don't see them as elite, great, tag teams. They're fine for what they are. I just thought their role in the club, their role alongside AJ Styles, I'm just really surprised that they were let go. They're multi-time tag team champions. They won the greatest tag team champion trophy or whatever that was on one of the Saudi Arabia shows. If I recall, not too long ago, they just re-signed for, multi-year contracts. So I'm really, really shocked they're on this list. I don't know if it's just a financial thing, and that's something that is a very real possibility as far as, obviously these were financial cuts, and the company is losing a ton of money with no live shows. They lost a ton of money on WrestleMania. Their ratings are down at the moment, even though people are home. It's just not the same watching. And these are all strictly financial cuts. But I wonder how many of these people have, they kind of talked to them and said, look, we're letting you go. We need to save the money, but keep that phone in hand and we'll give you a call in a few months. And it wouldn't surprise me if they were part of that group. But, again, this is all behind the scenes. Who knows? So, yeah, I'm really shocked by that cut. I'm really surprised that they were let go. It wasn't that long ago. They were, really like given more merchandise and more chance to work with AJ Styles. And, of course, they took part in the Boneyard match. And, yeah, it is what it is. Another guy who got himself over, first got over, by the company, and then was kind of buried and mismanaged a bit, and then got himself over again, was Rusev. He's been very vocal about his misuse, and I'm torn because every wrestler should want, their goal should be to be the best in the business. Their goal should be to be a world champion, to be at the top of the card. Like, nobody gets in this business thinking to themselves, like, I just want to wrestle on WWE main event, or I want to be in the bottom of the card, or I want to be used sporadically. Nobody gets into the business with that. Everyone should get into the business thinking they want to be a top star. And he's had some great moments where he's been near the top of the card. I don't know if I've ever viewed him as a top of the card guy. Like, I do think there were times when he should have been a world champion. Absolutely. But I don't see him as a sustained top of the card guy. And I think sometimes the company should, when the guy is that hot, give them that chance, put him at the top, let him run with it for a little bit, and if it doesn't work, it's fine. At the time, there were multiple times when the fans wanted it. Rusev Day was one of the hottest angles they had. Push it, run with it. If the fans want it, give it to them. And we're fickle. Daniel Bryan is correct. Wrestling fans are super fickle. They want something, and they want something, and they want something, and once they get it, they're like, oh, okay, I'm not sure if I want it anymore. I want something else. And you know what? That's okay. Like, you can do that, but the company needs to kind of go with it, roll with that tide a little bit more. When you're hot, when the fans want it, give it to them. And as soon as they say, I don't want it anymore, then move on to something else. He will find a way. He will find a job. He will find work. I'm curious to see what effect that will have on his wife, Lana, who has been in a god-awful storyline with Bobby Lashley for far too long. It looks like they are finally considering breaking up that train wreck. I understand why they did that story. If the reports were true of the YouTube views, I mean, I guess they are true because you can search through segments when WWE places their segments from each show on social media, on YouTube, on various social media platforms. You can see how many views each thing has, and apparently the views on those segments back when they were doing that Rusev, Lashley, Lana love triangle were through the roof. I don't know anybody that liked it, but apparently people were clicking. And you click on it, they make money. It is what it is. He will find work somewhere, and that's fine. Now, I'm not going to talk about each one in depth. There was, you've got No Way Jose, you've got Aiden English, you got Eric Young, you got the Primo and Epico Cologne. I got a lot of guys that just, they were on the lower end of the card. That's fine. I feel bad that anybody loses their job, but I understand it. It is what it is. They'll go find work elsewhere. They'll always be known as former WWE star, former Impact star, former whatever star. Someone like Eric Young had success in multiple companies. He'll find work. No Way Jose, that was a fun gimmick. It never should have left NXT. But again, you need to have people lose that can lose, and so that's what his job was. Maria and Mike Kanellis, they just never hit with the WWE audience. That gimmick just didn't work. It never worked. So it's fine letting them go. Sarah Logan, I'm very surprised on that one. I think she was and is much more talented than given credit for. I think she's just a very beautiful, very talented woman, and obviously she is married to one of the War Raiders. So I'm surprised that she was let go. I don't know what the reasoning is. I don't know what her financial contract was, what her backstage presence was, but maybe she'll be back. Who knows? Leo Rush is one who has been, he's an interesting dude. He's very vocal, sometimes good, sometimes bad. He's very talented for sure. I mean, he's great on the mic. He's great in the ring. I get the vibe that he just kind of rubbed people the wrong way, and maybe that was their reason with him. When he wasn't getting a shot, he let the world know he wasn't getting his shot. You should be able to speak your mind a little bit. Maybe he spoke it too much, but he is a very talented wrestler who will definitely find himself some opportunity. And the last one from the main roster list that I'm going to talk about is Eric Rowan. He was always the weak link in the Wyatt family. I am surprised, honestly, that he made it this far. I mean, he has size, and he actually is pretty good on the mic. He just not a very interesting person. He was not given a lot of chances to be interesting. He just wasn't. He just didn't have that thing that made you want to watch. He was great as part of a tag team. He was great as part of a cult family. But I don't know if individual success was ever going to be, to be something he had. At the time of this recording, there was a few NXT stars. A few NXT wrestlers. No major names, no major television presence that were released. Again, saving money. It is what it is. Mike Chioda, the referee, that was a little bit surprising. I wonder what his contract was. I wonder if they just needed to save a little bit of money. And then I started off the podcast with Kurt Angle's Olympic moment. Now, he was technically let go. Obviously, he's retired. He's not an in-ring wrestler. He's just one of those wrestlers, one of those legends now at this point, who would be there to promote stuff during certain segments or, major pay-per-views. It's the kind of thing where he's one of those guys that I would imagine would show up every now and again. Well, they're not doing a lot of that right now. He'll always be a WWE legend. He's a Hall of Famer. He's an all-time great in the ring. He'll be back on TV at some point. And then there were a lot of producers let go, a lot of backstage people, and they use the word furlough, and that's a word that I had to look up a few months ago, and it's a word that we've heard a lot in society lately. They were let go now. I imagine many of them will be back. They're there to produce matches and backstage segments and live show events, and there just isn't as much of that right now. So it's sad that they had to be let go currently, but hopefully many of them will be back. Many of them will find, jobs somewhere, land on their feet, and I'm sure they will. Lots of big names, lots of talented people. And there was the very ironic one, that I didn't mean to laugh at, but Mike Rotunda, who was formerly known as IRS, was released on April 15th, which is typically the tax day. So there was a little bit of irony in that. So again, I feel bad for so many of these people. I am glad that the company was deemed essential, which you can take it politically however you want. You can spin it politically whatever fits your agenda, that's fine. I'm going to spin it from a fan perspective and say that I am glad I've got entertainment. I've got wrestling to watch Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. If they're taking proper precautions, if they are able to test or quarantine or keep people safe, if it wasn't for that ability, who knows if this list, these wrestlers, who knows if that list would have been much longer. They are able to, use these wrestlers in the ring. They are able to use them 3 nights a week. So thankfully, they are able to do that. It's great that we get to watch the shows. I miss having the crowd. I'm sad that the Money in the Bank pay-per-view will, which is up and coming, will be potentially performed at the Performance Center. They're doing qualifying matches. We're going to have the event, I think. I know it's not going to be where it was in the arena that was advertised. So we're going to kind of wait and see if we're going to get another WrestleMania type pay-per-view performance. But I am going to dive into the Money in the Bank on the next episode. It's just a great stipulation. It's led to some super great matches, super great moments, super great pay-per-views. It's just awesome. So there is a lot to discuss when it comes to Money in the Bank. I just felt like with the giant list of wrestlers that were and producers, being released, it was worthy of newsworthy enough to talk about. So it wasn't as much fun to talk about as it was talking about The Undertaker, and it won't be as much fun as it was to talk about when I do the Money in the Bank episodes. But either way, it is what it is. It's news. And it is, that was my take. That was that guy's take from That Guy's Wrestling Podcast. I appreciate all of you that are listening, jumping in, following, again, hit me up on Twitter, Instagram, follow me and like my pages on Facebook, on YouTube. Check out fightbananas.com. Find us on iTunes, or iHeartRadio. Wherever you want to find us, find me, find my show, find the other wonderful Fight Bananas podcasts. However you listen to that kind of stuff, however you watch, we are there. So I appreciate it. I appreciate all the love and support. Keep chiming in, commenting, and I am tapping out.